All right, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next presenter. This is Johanna Russell from Ankeny Community School District. Once again, you can access her session slides on the handout or on the agenda that's on your table, and also can get to that electronically. Keep in mind that there is a back channel, so feel free to pose questions on there. Also, just wanted to make a quick point. In that last presentation, she shared some of the Iowa AEA online resources. Just wanted to mention that those are kind of the core resources that all the AEAs have that are provided for schools. Each AEA then does have the ability, and we actually have some other resources beyond those at Heartland AEA. And so it'd be worth noting, if you go to Heartland AEA's website, there is a section at the top, I think it's digital or online, or Library and Digital Resources is the tab, and then down underneath that is a section called Online Resources. So just wanted to mention that there are several more resources beyond what is on the Iowa AEON list. And I'll give you the mic so that we can capture this too as well.
The media resources are half of my job. So what you need to know, the Iowa AEA online has all of those great resources. Heartland has all of those and lots more. So definitely check them out. And if you don't know your username and password, one of your tech integration folks, the Heartland folks, or your teacher librarian typically can help you out.
With that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation. Would you please welcome Johanna Russell?
Hello. Okay, so I'm just now thinking that I should have had my computer plugged in so it wouldn't do that. But that's okay, we'll wing it as we go along. So I am Johanna Russell. I have been an art teacher. This is my 14th year. I spent most of my lifetime in secondary, but I decided that it was time to take what I know and see if I could make it work with elementary students. So I am trying out kindergarten through 5th grade. Kindergarten was very scary. Anybody ever taught kindergarten before? Woo! But I wanted to learn something new, and I'm absolutely enjoying it. So this presentation is not about technology from the rose-colored glasses point of view, but it is boots on the ground, what it is like when you give technology to a student and they would rather Snapchat their boyfriend than engage in your learning. So with that, I do need to ask for a little information about you, because I like to cater my presentations to match my audience. So if you could either use the QR code listed here, or if you're in my presentation, you can click on the link here. Could you please let me know just a little bit about yourself? And I'll give you a minute to get access into either the QR code, and it's a short survey, it won't take long if you're using your phone, or you can use the link. And then I have a little video to get us all in the mood of arts education. Is anyone still needing the QR code, or can I go ahead and move to something else while you're... I need to turn that off.
I wondered what would be the worth of my words in the world if I write them and then recite them, or their words being heard. Just because I like them, does that mean that I should mic them and see what might unfurl? And I think of the significance of my opinions here. Is it significant to be giving them? Does anybody care? Just because I'm into this, does that mean that I should live like it, and really do I dare? Trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to. So I pondered the point of my art in this life. If I make it, will someone take it and think that it's genuine? Would they be glad that I did, cause they got something good out of it? Would they leave me and be any more inspired? And I question the outcome of the outpouring of myself. If I tell everyone my stories, would this keep me healthy and well? Would it give me purpose? And to this world some sort of service, is it worth it?
So, has anyone seen that video before? A couple of people. It's a quite interesting, wait, did I turn myself off? No, I didn't. Okay. It's an interesting program, actually. Those two artists came out of Canada. Canada has a system where essentially young artists can apply for a grant that encourages them to make art for a year. And one artist was the artist you saw actually painting, and then the other artist was the one that came up with the music. So that is a great, if you ever need a sub plan and you're like, what to do, this is a great thing that a sub can play, and then you can pass out some oil pastels, or if you want to be brave and do paint with a sub, it really does kind of uplift the students and put them into the right frame of mood. So the little noise that you keep hearing, this is not something I was going to present, but I'm going to tell you how many of you are the sole music art teacher in your building or technology coach in your building. If you have not discovered Slack, it is how you can stay connected and feel like you are working in a room and with a team, even when you are all by yourself. So that little ping that you hear, because I didn't close out of my Slack channel before I started, is other art teachers posting or commenting on a private channel through Slack. So I recommend, if you've never looked into Slack, that is definitely something to look into. Way better than email because it's so easy to search, and it allows you and your organization to sort conversations. Everything from random water cooler conversations to like, we need to talk about second grade. So, a little bit about me. I don't normally look like this. This is normal me. I wear a jumpsuit. If you are an art teacher and not discovered the joys of teaching in a jumpsuit, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. I have a big swatch of black something right here on my jumpsuit. I have no idea where that came from, but it is not on any of my personal clothing. But yes, loving my elementary experience. I also teach with the Art of Education. So part of why I switched roles was so that I could work more with a website that is called theartofeducation.com. It is just for art teachers, and it offers professional development, pre-K through high school, and it has a lot of free resources, but I happen to be a part of the program where we provide actual professional development, and it works through Morningside. It's an interesting experience because I've been able to teach with art teachers all over the world. I had no idea there were 145 school districts, U.S. school districts, that run and exist outside the borders of the United States. So it's how a lot of those people get their professional development or get a master's degree if you are in Morocco. So I also do Heartland when I have time. I've already talked about how this is a realistic look. So in education, it is easy to get caught up in the buzz of a new concept, but new doesn't mean magical. I feel like a lot of times I go to a presentation and they're like, here's your Harry Potter wand. If you wave this, life will be awesome. And then you get in and use it with students, and ultimately the internet doesn't work, or something fails, or you can't get a kid to be in the program they're supposed to be in and not in the program you don't want them to be into. And so this presentation is about the nuts and bolts of actually getting it to work. So, okay. I love to read, and I generally like to read and learn from non-educational sources. So, has anybody read Inevitable yet? I highly recommend this book. It is essentially trying to predict what will our future be like in 20 years. So our kindergartners right now, what is the job market that they are going to go into? Now the fascinating thing is that no one could have predicted today's world 20 years ago, as part of what the book looks at. And the value of the arts is continuing to increase because computers are going to be able to do so much of what we currently do. And so it's just a very fascinating look at how not only education is going to need to change, but our jobs and how we function as people is going to change. Leader in Me, many of you have probably read. If you have not read the Checklist Manifesto, highly recommend it. It has transformed hospitals, and then I have used it in education. That's what I'm going to show you. And then obviously, oldie but a goodie, The First Days of School by Harry Wong and Rosemary Wong. So, first thing to know about me is that I flip my classroom. Flip means I use video instruction, and it looks like most of you are aware of this concept, but basically I do something that's called faux flipping. Faux flipping means that video instruction is provided in my room and is not required outside of my room. That is an optional component, and I'll tell you, as soon as you add the word optional to video viewing, all of your students will watch the video. As soon as you require videos to be watched, none of your students will watch the videos. So it's one of those things, you know. But it allows for the most learning, the most student choice, and the most teacher monitoring to confirm that students are able to learn. So I'm going to get into how all that works, but just kind of to keep us all on the same page. Then I have 2 YouTube channels. So when I was a secondary teacher, this one is called Southview Art. You're welcome to use it. I not only post my own videos here, but I also curate videos. And I'm looking for videos. I mean, we all know there are millions. I keep carrying this around, I gotta let go. There are millions of videos on YouTube, and not all of them will lead to students learning something. And so the ability to go someplace where I have curated videos might be helpful, because I know that these are videos that students can learn with, right? They are either made by teachers or they are being directed by teachers, because you know how you can just tell, right, when it's someone that really knows what they're doing. Now, coming to you live, I am trying this out at an elementary school. Now, currently, I'm trying this out with no technology in my room. Your guys' technology sounds like a dream. A dream. I have Zippo to technology. I have a projector, and I have a school computer that doesn't work very well, so I use my own computer. But the trick is, Netflix was called Netflix before they even had the internet available to run a movie. You gotta dream the dream, and trust me, they will follow. I've done this once at the secondary. That's how we were able to get iPads into the secondary in Ankeny. I know sometimes you think Ankeny and think they have all the technology. We have none of the technology, just to be clear, none of it. They probably don't want me to tell you that, but hello internet, I'm telling you that. So I don't have anything, but I am getting it. I am lucky to have a PTO that can help provide me a couple of iPads, mini iPads. But right now, I am just playing it for the students, just one video at a time, and slowly curating the information. All right, keep it going. Then I've added to this, so you can't just do videos. If you try to just teach with videos, it won't work. You have to add a motivational tool. So I use gamification. This was a little less known by the crowd. So gamification basically means that you are turning learning into a competitive game, but not connected to how much they learn or how well they learn. You are connecting to their want, that human drive to like beat somebody else. And you make it about not the learning, but task completion, staying on task, things that they can control that aren't associated with what they know, right? It's all about behavior control. So it is a low-cost, high-impact incentive system, and I'm going to show you how it works. So the first thing is I'm going to show you a little video. Now I have to warn you, I was about ready to close down my entire classroom and move my world to elementary, and I thought, I better make a video of all the stuff I've got going on before I close it. So I didn't have my mic with me, I didn't have anything, but it's just gonna give you a quick snippet look at how I did this in the classroom.
The purpose of this video is to show you how I teach in an 8th and 9th grade art room, some systems and routines that I have in place. Get assistance. Okay, some other little tips and tricks would be, sorry we're spinning again, is keeping track of essentially what do students have to do when. I happen to do that through the use of a learning guide.
We're getting to it.
That tells the students exactly what I want them to do. So I always break the projects down into actual steps. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. I have a student check off and I have a teacher check off. I strongly encourage this, even if it's posted up on the board and a student is like literally checking off, like if instead I came in and I had to write my name and then the steps, this was posted somewhere else rather than a sheet of paper. But if I had to check off on the board that I completed something, or if I didn't know how to do something, I put a question mark. But instead,
Rule 1, I have tried every ways till Friday to get the checklist to not be paper. Does not work. Kids can open a new tab and totally ignore and forget what was on the other tab. But a sheet of paper they cannot turn away from. Also, just for teacher tracking, it is so much easier to sort some paper than it is to sort things on the computer. I would love it if you figured out a way for it to not be on paper, but I've tried every way I could to have it be digital, and it didn't work as well as paper. And I'm going to show you some examples here.
to you that's not physically talking to you. So I happen to do that through this board here, and then I have all the students have a little magnet with their name on it that tells me what learning step they're on.
So I have 160 plus
also,
magnets
many students
on this board.
or many classes get to the point where you need passes.
Okay, so
I
we're gonna stop there. I'm gonna show you more. Okay. So what you need to know is you can't see it from here, but it is all color coded. So a student is looking, they know their class color is pink, and they have a guide that tells them what they have to do at every single step. And as they complete a step, they have to every so often show it to me, and I have to confirm that the learning was met. That might be through some sort of formative assessment, that might be through them actually showing me a product, but it is a teacher check-in moment. The beauty is that because all of this is self-paced, all of my assessment is done in class. This turned my job into something that I could do 8 hours a day and then leave. Because all day long, all I did was assess because the teaching was happening through the videos. Now I'm going to get in to show you more because that solves about 90% of your problems for about 90% of the students about 90% of the time, right? But what it does is some people think flipping and they're like, but my students need to interact with me and I need to be able to interact with them. And flipping actually increases student interaction because how many minutes do you spend or does a teacher spend talking to the class when that moment could be turned into a conversation moment? So we're gonna get more. Don't worry, I'll get you to buy in by the end. So we're moving on. Okay, we're just getting started. All right. So there's some sort of game board. Here is one. How many of you have taught? Now I know I'm speaking to the crowd. You have taught a group of teachers and you have given them something to do and then they did nothing? Oh, I know. You didn't raise your hand, but I know because I've done it too. I was in charge of the mentoring program at Ankeny for a couple of years with another teacher, and we used learning guides, which I'm going to show you several examples, and gamification with teachers. Didn't call it a game. Just put your name on the board, and as you complete a step, check it off. I've never seen teachers work so fast and been so focused and not open their email and not start to grade it because all of the things they need to do, it is valuable, important work. They have a million things on their plate, and to ask them to forget about those things is not going to happen. But causing them to forget about those things because it's a game, because now someone else, look, the music teachers made music notes for their checkout. They get attached to this. Some people wrote the end when they got to the end of the checklist, right? Like smiley faces. Turning it into a simple game changes the world, but you have to have this learning guide, which is where I'm going next. Okay, so what is a learning guide? A learning guide provides a map to the students for their learning. It takes the control of what happens next away from the teacher and puts it on the shoulders of everyone else. So you can do this as young as kindergarten, and I mean kindergarten in September when you don't have a clue what you're doing because you've been teaching 8th and 9th graders for your entire career. You can do this. It works. Now it has to all be in pictures because that I learned was sad. They cannot read. Did you know that? Like I knew that because I have little kids, but then I'm like, oh, you people cannot read anything. And so like I had, you laugh at me, but it was like a serious problem. Like I was not prepared. So this turned away from, this was originally my kindergarten plan. I thought, look, I'll show them a picture. This is what it looks like to plan your art. And then I'll show them a picture. No, because they cannot read that then 5 minutes later to remind them what the plan was. Anyway, so for kindergarten, these tasks do have to be actual pictures. And then rather than having the students check off, learn that doesn't work, you have to tell them how did they feel about the task. I felt good or I felt bad. Now that does not mean that they did the task right, but it lets you know what they're coming to you as. And then boy howdy, are they super excited to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then get a sticker put on that sheet at the very end. And they couldn't be more excited to come and show you their work. It takes about 15 seconds to 30 seconds a student. And you do have to train kindergartners that you can't come to me, I'll come to you. So that's the one kind of difference I've learned K2 is that older than K2, you can have the student come to you to get signatures. Younger than K2 or second grade and younger, you want it to be that the teacher is the one moving from station to station. And isn't it super exciting if you get to get 3 signatures at a teacher's stop rather than just 1? So this seems so simple, but it is the one trick. If you don't have this, it does not work. This is when you get closer to 4th. I haven't yet done this with 3rd grade. This is a little too advanced yet. My 3rd graders are still at the very simplistic form, but 4th through 6th grade, this works really well. You'll notice that it says things like write your personal learning goal for this class. Even if that goal is listed on the board, by having the students write it down, all of this learning guide is about transferring the ownership to them, because the checklist manifesto, the research shows that if you do not transfer the checklist to the individual, they will not do it and they will not own it, right? So they have to write the goal. They cannot just read the goal. Then it says watch video instruction. They will not watch that video if it is on the board. If this is on the board, you will be going around going, did you do step 2 yet? You're talking to your friend. What step are you on? They won't do it. You have to give them the actual paper to cause them to go back every time. And then you generally have to give them a purpose. So to give you skill knowledge for your WOW project. And then you also have to give them purpose during the watching. And then to practice from the video is also essential. So to give the ability to use this. Now this is, as a teacher, this is where I make my money. Because they're going to have a goal. They're going to watch me. They're going to do it. And then it's going to be an absolute train wreck. And then I'm going to have to figure out where it went wrong and how it went wrong. And I now have time, because it's not a train wreck for everybody. For everyone else, they get a new checklist. At the elementary level, I've learned no more than 4 things on your checklist. And then they get a new one. And you can color code them. So I'm on the red checklist. I'm on the orange checklist, right? So, at the secondary level, I encourage you to actually include the assessment. And then I don't check someone off for a step unless they are at a B or higher. If they are less than a B, it means you don't get a check mark, and instead you go to my VIP lounge, which I'll explain in a second in a video. That is how I'm providing assistance to students who aren't able to do the learning off of watching and practicing on their own. They're needing teacher instruction, or if they're advanced. Okay, so this is how it looks at a teacher level. So this is the checklist I gave teachers, and I want you to take a minute to just kind of internalize this, because although I teach teachers, I'm also a teacher, and I will tell you, if your professional development does not connect to me, I will figure out a way to sneak in something else on my to-do list at the same time that I'm learning. So, sorry, no offense, but we're busy, right? So here's what I was able to get those teachers to do. Think of a time when you had learning needs that were different from others in the group. So again, giving them purpose. But rather than making them write a goal, that's very childish to say, what's your goal today? As a teacher, I'd be like, well, I have all sorts of goals I can create for you, right? But it's giving them a purpose that's different. If I'm in a group of 4, I have something unique that I am offering the team. Then pick a class that would benefit from a data sort, keeping in mind that the names might change, but the story remains the same. in 5 minutes or less, they sorted. Then they were able to make a list of what they've already tried. They grieved that list, because if you've called a parent 20 times, 21st time is not going to be magical, right? And it caused them to actually work as a team to problem solve for groups that needed help, for students that needed help. And then once they were all done, I didn't post pictures here, but we had a board of ideas and things that they could do. Most teachers, if you gave them this task, would never get beyond trying to figure out and sort the groups, because they would be working independently, even if they were at a table and even if they were told to work together. But turning it into the checklist helped. The reason I learned this is the Checklist Manifesto found out that you can give doctors a checklist, but it's not until you put the nurse in charge of saying, yes, doctor, you completed step 2, that the checklist actually works. So it doesn't have to be the teacher. You know, you can turn it over to other people, right? These people didn't check in with me. They checked in with each other by making a mark on the board. Okay, before I get into showing you, this is a little bit longer, but it's taking everything I just explained, which was a lot, and it is showing you boots on the ground. This is how I did it with high school students, 8, 9 students. What general questions for the good of the cause are floating? Let's do it this way. How many people have questions floating in their head? Oh, no, brave souls. Okay, I'm going then. Ugh. All right, here we go.
Johanna Russell, and I wanted to introduce to you how I run my choice-based classroom at the 8th and
In art, this is often called choice-based. Music also has something very similar, or the studio habits of mind or the habits of mind. Technology has something very similar. So ignore the names because they sound like specific to visual art, but it's about having the student be in charge of their learning. I forgot that part.
9th grade level. So the first thing is I am always greeting students outside the classroom. I stand and hold the door open, and I make sure to address them by name and invite them into the space. I have a couple of cheats though, because at the 8th and 9th grade level, like I see 600 students. So how do I learn 600 student names? So first off, all of my resources are on wheels, okay? So this is on wheels, my sketchbooks are on wheels, and then I make the students write their name super big in Sharpie on their sketchbook, front and back. I also have packets that I make them write their name really big in Sharpie, front and back. And then, this way, when they are walking into the room, they always tend to hold their supplies like this, and I can cheat, I can see their name. So, I also, as they come into the room for my choice-based class, I have all of my organization at the very beginning. This slows my line and gives me a chance to actually talk to the students. It also lets me look for students who are not coming into the space ready to learn, and it allows me to call them back out, remind them of the expectations, and invite them back into the space. That is one of the biggest things I have learned, is to teach students how to self-start versus self-socialize. So I make them take attendance right here. Then I take all my classes, and each student is given a magnet with their name and their picture on it. They then take this magnet and move it to where they would like to work. It is first come, first serve, and there are only so many seats per each studio experience. I allow several medias and studios to exist in one space, and I instead designate it by the type of work they're doing. So for example, I have a 2D zone, I have a messy area, which handles everything from paint to paper mache. I have a 3D space, and then I have my center inside loop, which could use any media at. This is where students get teacher feedback. For Heartland, I
actually offered a class on this, and so I have had teachers take this system where essentially you have to envision a different, like for example, last year my mentee was a math teacher, and she was able to use this system, but instead of it being based on the media, it was based on where the student was learning at and what style or type of learning did they like. And if you want to never have an 8th grader or a 9th grader be late to class ever again, you make them have to get there early to get their seat, because they won't be late. They just won't, because otherwise the only seats that are left are the ones with me in my VIP lounge. Actually, that's not true. You'd be surprised how I have to tell them, like, you've sat here 3 times, you need to go be independent now. But we'll keep going. I'll get to that part.
Where we go through the discussion of their artwork, or how to move on, or when they think they're done, or if they want to start their art piece, they have to gain clearance here. I take all of that information and I provide my students a list of all of the studios. So those are the studios. Oh, and I also have technology. I have computers, and I have 6 computers available in the classroom. So I have all my studios, and then I have the medias broken down by type. And then it's like a video game. Every kid, because this is what my PLC agreed on, has to complete level 1 of every single studio. After that, they can pick the studio or studios that they're most interested in, and they can work their way across like this, right? They can choose where to go. They can't start doing paint on canvas, though, unless they get credit for all of these other studios. They do not have to make an art piece in each studio, but they have to gain clearance, which means for me that they can tell me that they have experimented with the material and can tell me 10 things the material can and cannot do, and they have actual evidence of that. Then I make the packets. I make a packet that walks them through a checklist of what they need to do. So they start by learning all the basic safety information. They start by learning how each studio functions, and then they slowly start creating ideas of what they want to do for their art piece. So they have a lot of choice in that they control how fast they move through the steps. They also have a lot of choice in choosing what media that they want to work with, but they don't have choice in going through the artistic creation cycle. And that cycle I create using the national art standards. And so essentially it causes them to create an idea, or many, many ideas, finalize an idea, execute that idea, present that idea, respond to the artwork of themselves and others, reflect on the whole experience, and then repeat. So for me, that happens to take 16 steps to get one art project through all of those standards. And then some students go through the process quickly, and some students go through the process slowly. The second time through the process, I allow them to work with a partner, and so that's how I am able to get a lot of students to make 2 pieces of art by the time they're done with art. The first piece of art that they make, really the actual only art making, not idea development, not figuring out how to do what they want to do and learn the skills they need, the actual execution of the art only takes 3 days. On the second art project, they get a minimum of 9 days. To give you an idea of what those projects look like, if you look up at the top line there, those are all projects that took individual students or groups of students 9 days to complete. Okay, then, so they've picked their seat. They then, on my overhead, it is organized by color. So in green is what they need to do right away. In blue, it is the goal that they should be working on and why they have that goal. If they're working ahead, they make their own goal. If they're working behind, we set a lower goal. And then the schedule of what's going to happen. So I don't formally start the class. They come in, they get their stuff out, they start working right away. I've called anyone I haven't seen working right away back to the hall to remind them what are the expectations in green, what help do you need to complete those things in green, what do you not understand about the schedule. So I'm just, the first 5 minutes, I'm pulling any kids back out to the hall and then re-inviting them into the classroom space so that that expectation that we come in and we come into work is right away. Then after that is moved into regular classroom time. I happen to have, and excuse the mess, we've had a whole class day of school, but I happen to have something called Take a Number. So if students were wanting to get signed off on a spot and I was busy, they come to my sign, they take a number, and then I just call, now start helping number 1, now helping number 2. The students are also...
The meat counter knew everything. If you have not implemented or do not have teachers that use Take a Number system, you will revolutionize the world of a teacher, because as soon as a kid has a number, they become calm. They sit down. They do not fall. How some of you have that dream where you're like, Miss Russell, Miss Russell, Miss Russell, Miss Russell, and there's like a herd of ducks following you. They are like, I now have a number. I shall sit in my seat and wait until she calls my number. And I have no idea why that works. But there is something about it that does. So, okay, sorry, I just had to point out this. If none of this is just take a number, it will save your life.
Trained that if they need grades, they need clearance on a step to sit in this inside loop. So these are the kids that I am helping move along the steps of executing their art piece. And then these are also the students that tend to be ahead or behind of the learning schedule. Then when they actually, how do I know, okay, they got cleared for paint, but they haven't learned how to do shading with paint. What I do is I just take every Wednesday, because we happen to have a unique schedule on Wednesdays anyway, and every Wednesday, it's still choice, but it's totally outside the realm of this packet and these steps.
So I turned my game
Instead,
off.
we call them Learning Wednesdays, and I have 1 or 2 skills per studio, and the students, when they walk into the room, we happen to have Google Classroom. They sit in their assigned seats, they go straight to Google Classroom, and then they sign up for the studio that they would like to sit at and the skill that they would like to learn. They then spend that whole class time learning a skill that's totally removed from, so for Sharpies, the skill happened to be that they can learn how to blend Sharpies, or they can learn how to do Zentangles, right? So, or if they picked Pegboard and hot glue, they're learning how to make a maquette. They don't necessarily finish that learning, but it lets them dip their feet into the experience. I use video tutorials. About 70% of the tutorials are made by me, and about 30% of them are tutorials that I have found where I am confident a student can execute what they see in the video. So I'm very conscientious about not getting something that's just on fast forward, but something that was created by an actual art teacher. And to help find those resources, I have a Pinterest board that's called Flipping the Art Room, and my name is Johanna Russell. I don't know if you can search me and find me, but that board has links to videos that I use in my classroom. So then when they if I work through my steps 1, they're learning to not cut their finger off and be safe. Step 2, they're learning 4 new medias and getting clearance and learning how to document. Then they're learning to research art and see a bunch of visual examples. Then here it says...
So I wanted to show you that. Essentially, when a student comes up to me for their checklist, they are bringing their work for me, and I'm grading it on the spot. And if we didn't like the grade, I ask them, are you comfortable with that score? And if they say no, we sit down, and I teach them, well, this is where you're at, and this is what you need to do to make it work. And I have that time because the other students are also learning at their own. As soon as you take away the weight of a deadline, the opposite of what you think will happen happens. The game motivates them to learn, and they actually learn faster. When I compared myself to peers that were teaching the same classes at the same time, my students were able to cover more learning. I shouldn't say they learned more. We were able to cover more learning. The projects were bigger. I don't have the money to have 160 kids paint on canvas, but I do have the money to have 4. And because I made it challenging to get to that level, this is not the best painter in my class, the person who painted on that canvas. But that is the person who worked really hard for the opportunity to paint on canvas, and that's who I want to be able to have that opportunity, right? So it was about controlling the supply so it went to those who worked for it, and those who weren't gonna work for it, well then they became motivated because they're like, why does she get to be on canvas? Why do they get to use the 3D pen? I taught over 1,000 students this way, and I never had one student use a supply that they weren't cleared for. There's like an innate respect for the game. I don't know why, like if it's that's what they grew up with or not. Okay, I'm gonna do a show of hands because at this point I feel like you have enough knowledge that we could move on because I have something for you to actually do. But let's just take a vote. If you are ready to move on, you are raising your hand now. Good. Okay, so not good. I mean, if you wanted to keep going. But if this was a flipped classroom, you could have made that choice on your own. So, okay, here are the 3 things that you need to take away. First off, a teacher should never be doing this unless they have a behavior plan. And here is the secret. You can walk into any class. I will never forget Mr. Johnson. Oh man, there is no way we were ever doing anything wrong in Mr. Johnson's class. And I say this because then I got to work with him. But if Mr. Johnson left and then we were 100% sure that he wasn't actually going to like magically reappear, that room would have turned to absolute chaos. He was in control because he was in control. A flipped classroom requires that the control does not have to be there in order to have order. So in order to make that, you have to make the expectations extremely clear. I use Harry Wong and Rosemary Wong's system. I have a behavior expectation sheet. I spell it out to students because I'm a flipped classroom. If you wanted to see the actual video that students watch when they learn my behavior expectations, you can, because this is all learned through flipped instruction. They sign it, their guardian signs it, and I sign it, and they're not allowed to use anything sharp or hot or AKA fun until this sheet is turned and signed. Then, that greeting at the door generally solves any other behavior problems that I have, and learning can continue. I didn't mean to push that. Oh, now I'm in all sorts of trouble. Oh! I will think in the moment. I will not think in the moment. Oh, I do. Oh, yeah. Look, does this bar work? Let's find out. It does. Hooray! Okay, so second thing you have to have is a motivational plan. This plan can either be like a game that I just described, or it can be based on student choice, working with peers, or projects over testing. Something has to motivate a student beyond a grade in order for this system to work, but it takes very little. It is extremely shocking to me what students will do for the smallest amount of personal control. That and a pack of gum. I learned I can get a kid to clean for 45 minutes with one 25-cent pack of gum. It's magical. Okay, so the third thing that you have to have is a tool that allows the students to know what to do next and why they are doing that thing. So you can't just have the videos, you can't just have management, but you have to make sure the purpose has been transferred to the student. Once you do those things, we are going to let it become your turn. So I have for you a learning guide, and I meant to give you more than 10 minutes, so I'm sorry. I meant to stop that video sooner. So individually or as a table, complete your own learning. And I will pass these around. One of the first things is about questions. So I know you might have them, and I'll come around and answer them. I have, right here is a link to our tracker. So if you get into that link, it is going to track us as we move through these steps on the handout. There it is. All right, so hooray, we have someone on there, several people on there. So as a table, you can come up with a table name, or if you are doing this with actual students, you would want them to put their actual name. It's better to have a student be responsible for their own selves. And it is now posted. And then as you complete a step, you get to check it off. And this link, by the way, was the very last slide of the presentation. So thank you. If I could bring you back together just a minute. So I want to be respectful of the fact that we're all going to need a break. So if you have any questions and you would be brave enough to kind of ask the whole group, maybe it's a similar question. Be brave for me. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but it's on Zoom. I'm right by it. Anyway, gamification and flipping your classroom is they're both concepts that not a lot of people outside of tech users really know about. My question is, did you have to get admin buy-in? Did you have to run it past admin since you're totally changing your style of teaching? Did you have parent problems when they came and said, you turned art into a game? Did you run into any of that kind of stuff?
So I'm a huge believer in marketing. Huge. Do not ask permission, market your ideas instead. So I marketed it. I explained to parents that I had this awesome opportunity for their child to learn art whenever they wanted and to get one-on-one help whenever they needed it. And it was all about presenting the message that I wanted. And I had so I teach every kid in the entire school and have forever. And so I've been doing this in different levels for about 9 years. And I've had one student or one parent ever. And when I made a video for her and I'm like, excellent, let me show you what this is like. And 7.5 minutes later, she was like one of my biggest advocates and helped me get more technology for my classroom. So it's one of those things that I don't think you should ever ask permission. I think you should market your ideas. And market it to parents first, because once parents say they want it, administrators will want it too. This is how we didn't have the technology to do, I didn't even have when I started, I didn't even have a projector that could play video. And I marketed it, and next thing I knew, someone went to the school board and said, we have to let her try this. In fact, what happened was Heartland had a thing. They gave us all eye touches if we did like a lot of volunteering. I don't know, we came in for a lot of classes and they're like, here, this is this eye touch. I had never seen one before. They're like, we're not sure how we can use this. See what you can do with it. And then that caused me to make my video, and I just had one eye touch, and then that got me 4, and then the next thing I knew, like 6 months later, we had a whole cart of Generation 1 eye touches. I used those up until last year. If I could find that cart, I'd still be using them because they are fantastic. You cannot break them. But anyway, sorry, tangent.
Then my other question is, as skill-based classes, gamification is a lot easier because you can break it down into, but how did you go about effectively breaking all your things down into task by task by task? Is there an effective way to do it, or did you just sit down and say, okay, these are the things we need to do, or how did you do that?
So when I teach this to new teachers, what I ask them to do is look at a unit or look at a learning purpose. Let's say it's social studies. Okay, your learning purpose is what? Okay, clearly define learning purpose. Where are all the places where this will not work, where this will fail? Where are the moments where failure will occur? And then that is how you break it into your steps. Okay, so if it's gonna fail at this moment, what things are necessary to prevent that failure? And those go 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3. And then that's where you have a grading checkpoint or a teacher checkpoint. And then the younger they are, or the less skilled they are, you know, if you're teaching someone who literally knows nothing, Jon Snow, about what you are talking about, you need a checkpoint every single step. But if you're talking about someone who's in drawing 2, you might not need a checkpoint until step 6 or 7. So that's how I recommend it.